I just want the lesson of Bathsheba. That's all. Nobody will see it but me.
There's good video editing. You can edit them out if
we can edit it all out. All right. So we got Bathsheba. We know that she was taken by David. We know that she ended up getting pregnant. So there are certain things about her we know, and then she just kind of stops. And I want us to look at the fact that she goes on through the Bible, but we tend to. She's a woman who's stopped in one area, one bad mistake in her life. So if you think about your life, has there ever been something that you really would love to have lived down and you just couldn't live it down? People just kind of, whenever they see you, that one thing is the one thing that comes up, right? Mm-hmm. You're like, more than that. We saw it with Thomas, right? Mm-hmm. Yep. Everybody sees him thousands and thousands of years later. They're like, oh, you're the doubting one. He's like, darn it, there's more to me than that. The same is true with Bathsheba. But what she's known for is being taken by David. We've even seen and heard pastors and ministers kind of soften that blow. And when I say that, what do you think I mean by that? About what happened?
When the king requests something, you do it.
Right.
So it's not her fault.
A lot of times you hear it referred to there was an adulterous affair between them. Mm-hmm. That was not the case, which is what we're going to see. Like Victoria said, the king simply took her. And in today's, just like in those days, what would that be considered?
Kidnapping.
Trafficking.
Yeah.
Oppression.
Rape.
Yes. So I want us to just walk through.
Slavery.
I want us to realize what this woman lived through. Bathsheba, she was a woman who suffered greatly. Mm-hmm. I want us to look at how did she suffer greatly, and then see what did God do with it. Because she suffered not at her own hands, but at the hands of someone else. And if we think about our lives, sometimes we end up suffering because of what other people do to us, not because of what we do to ourselves. Yeah. When that happens, we tend to get stuck, right? Yes. God, how did you let this happen? Why didn't you stop? It's like we get stuck in all of that. I think this story is not fair. This story is here to show us that we can be sinned greatly against. And God allows it to continue. He comes in, he does something with it, which is what I want us to see with Bathsheba. So go to 2 Samuel 11. That's where her story is. No weird words, so whoever reads, it's real easy today.
I don't know, her husband's name is kind of out there. Hi titty, hi TT, hi. How do you say that?
Is it Uzziah?
Yeah, but then the Hittite.
Uzziah the Hittite. That's not hard.
Yes.
It's hard for me.
It may not be hard for you.
2 Samuel chapter 11. And if I could just get someone to just read 1 through 5 for now.
I can't even find it. I need a light.
Okay, I can read it.
Okay.
Go ahead, G.
Oh, okay. I was like, if you said it, Cindy, I'm cool.
No, you go for it, girl.
All right. In the spring, at the time when kings go off to war, David sent Joab out with the king's men and the whole Israelite army. They destroyed the Ammonites and besieged Rabbah, but David remained in Jerusalem. One evening, David got up from his bed and walked around on the roof of the palace. From the roof, he saw a woman bathing. The woman was very beautiful, and David sent someone to find out about her. The man said, "She is Bathsheba, the daughter of Elam, and the wife of Uriah the Hittite." Then David sent messengers to get her. She came to him, and he slept with her. Now she was purifying herself from her monthly uncleanliness. Then she went back home. The woman conceived and sent word to David, saying, "I am pregnant."
Okay, this is where it all begins. Here's Bathsheba, minding her own business. So it's a cleansing bath. What's the difference between just a regular bath and a cleansing bath?
It's
like
ordered by the...
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Oh, that's okay. It's ordered by the Torah. After your period, you take a mikvah. It's just
And you shouldn't be with a man for a certain amount of time,
Hmm.
cleansing.
Okay. So we know that obviously she wasn't pregnant because she just had a period, right?
Right.
So here she is, she's cleansing. This is what's going on. She's out here on the roof. Usually they put they would cleanse up on the roof before privacy. So, well, where can I go and not be seen? I'm going to go on top of the roof. But because King David was a king in a castle, he had a vantage point that others didn't have. A lot of times we hear this story and people will make it sound like there was some kind of a seduction going on.
Right.
Yet that is not, if we look at historically what's going on. She's up on top of the roof for the sake of privacy. But because of the king being up in a high position, he's able to look down, he sees her, he wants her, then all this crazy starts to ensue, right? So what's the first thing that he does? After he sees her?
Well, lust.
What's that?
He lusts.
Yes.
He
What does he
sent
do?
he sent a messenger.
Sent a messenger. So he's like, ooh, okay, I gotta go figure out some stuff. So it's not like, did he know that she was married?
I don't think he cared.
Probably trying to find out who she was.
I don't think he cared.
Yes. My point is, he sent someone to find out some information. It's like when you want something, you go in search of it, right? He wanted this woman, so he sent someone to find out. They came back and they told him. So even if he didn't know at the time, he came back and said, this is Uriah's wife. Who was Uriah? Besides her husband.
One of his soldiers.
Yeah.
One of his soldiers, one of his mighty men. So this is getting even closer to home. It's not like there's a strange woman and she's married, but I don't know her husband. This is one of David's mighty men. Her father was also one of David's mighty men. Her grandfather was a chief priest in David's court. So David stepping into this arena, he's stepping into some real mess, right? What do you think was going through her head? First, this guy comes and just inquires about who she is. What do you think? Let's say you are just, somebody comes and they say, I'm from the king, and he wanted me to come ask you some questions. What do you think would be going through your mind?
The thing I would think of was my husband, because he was out fighting.
Hey, maybe something's happened to my husband. That's why they're coming to my door. Anything else?
What did I do wrong? What's going on? Why is he asking to see me?
What did I do? You know, oh my gosh, am I in trouble? So when he sends for her, do you think there's any resistance whatsoever?
No.
Oh.
No, because she's going, in all innocence, either something might be up with my husband, or the king has summoned me, something must be wrong. So she willingly went. Yet we take that, we skew that into she was a part of this whole process. In actuality, if a king calls for you, you really have no choice but to go.
You gotta go.
You gotta go. So here she is. She goes to the king, and then he takes her, has sex with her, sends her away. How do you think this woman feels? She went there not for that. She went thinking something must be up. And then she gets there, takes her, have sex with her, sends her away. How would you feel?
Used.
Used? Those are the words. Give me some other words. How would you feel? Somebody just came and nabbed you, unbeknownst to you, have sex with you, and send you away.
If
I'd be a little pissed.
A little pissed off, used,
I would feel threatened.
threatened,
May
Violated.
want me off and my offspring because, you know, I know his dirty laundry.
Very confused.
confused,
Bamboozled.
bamboozled,
Yeah, because he's supposed to be like this man of
shamed.
God.
Did I hear shamed?
Shame.
Disgusted,
And I
trapped.
would think she's
All
a
kinds
woman
of
of
things.
God or trying to follow that because she's under David's realm. So I think she would be like, so now what does that mean as a woman of God? Like not just what David did, but now I'm kind of wrapped into this. So
Yes.
what does that mean from what God thinks about me now?
Right. I want us to see what her psyche is, what's going on. Here's this woman, I don't know what the time frame is. Let's just say 2 hours earlier, minding her own business, trying to cleanse herself. And now she's thrown into a situation where now she's ashamed of herself, she's feeling devalued, she's feeling used, she's feeling all of this stuff, as she's been sent away. It's not like, you stay in my house now. It's like, I'm done with you. You may now leave. So whatever that walk of shame must have been like for this woman, she is feeling devalued, dishonored, demeaned, violated, terrified, bamboozled, all those words. We as women may not be for the same reason. We understand the feelings of that, right? Especially when it comes again at the hands of someone else and you had absolutely no say in it.
Power.
So
Yeah.
I just want us to see, we think Bathsheba, we've minimized her, we've taken away really who she is. It's almost like we've taken the face of Bathsheba away. And she's simply this woman used in David's story. And I want us to see there's more to her there. God has her there because she relates to us. She helps us to understand that there are times when things will happen to us and we will feel all those various things we just named off. So here she goes back to her home, I'm sure confused, trying to figure out, what am I going to do now, right? I love the fact that she said this was a woman, it wasn't like a worldly woman. This was a woman living spiritually. That's what she and her husband were known. That's why he was part of David's mighty men. So now she's going from, okay, I considered myself a righteous woman 3 hours ago. Now what am I?
Yeah.
We go through that. Something happens to us that we had no control over, yet we feel dirty. We feel undeserving. And then we think, how can I now consider myself righteous? Gloria.
One thing when stuff like that happens to you by people that you perceive as very evil, but if something happens to you from somebody that you perceive to be a man or woman of God,
Yes.
Oh,
is, I can't even, that I don't have words for that.
Yeah. We can just see just how confused. I mean, there was a lot. The whole point is there was a lot going on inside of this woman. So then we get home and we don't know the time frame because it doesn't tell us. But look in verse 26. Okay, first she gets home, she finds out I'm pregnant. So let's just say there was a couple of weeks in there. So she goes, oh my gosh, now I'm pregnant. What do I do? Not only have I been violated and used, now I'm pregnant. My husband's been at war. I'm pregnant. Timeline's not working.
yeah.
People want to say things and think things. So she's really in this spiral.
Yeah. Uriah wasn't there, so it can't be his child.
Right,
But David understands that.
right.
I
But
think
think about us. Let's say we're Bathsheba. We find ourselves in this space. We're pregnant, yet we had nothing to do with it. How do you think people responded or would respond to knowing that this woman whose husband has been at war is now pregnant?
probably make her a pariah. She's not clean.
Yes,
They're all about being
Slut
clean.
shaming.
yes. What did you say, Dave?
Slut shaming.
Slut shaming? Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
It always falls on the woman. It
Always comes back, right? So again, I want us to see what's going on inside this woman. There's a lot going on inside of her. She sends word to David, pregnant. You don't know the time frame, what happened. David goes off and he does stupid stuff. But look in verse 26. Can I get somebody to read verse 26? There's a lot I'm going to skip because I just want us to see what she's feeling. Okay, so I'm skipping David. It's verse 26.
When Uriah's wife heard that her husband was dead, she mourned for him.
Okay.
The period of mourning was, just the verse.
That's good.
Sorry.
She heard that. So, okay. So she sends word to David, I'm pregnant. David comes up with his craziness and has her husband killed, right? So now this woman who has been shamed, demeaned, devalued, everything else, sent home, finds out she's pregnant, and now she hears, my husband's dead. What is she feeling?
Couldn't imagine what she's feeling.
God must be against me.
Yeah, like forgotten
Yes.
God.
You see,
Is it
it's
ever-
Those are the things where you ask God why.
yes. What were you saying?
Does it ever say if she knew that David had arranged for his
It
death?
doesn't say.
Doesn't say.
It doesn't say. So that, and I want to thank you for bringing that up. I want us to see as all of this is happening, because we get David's story. This woman is in the dark. She doesn't know all of this. All she knows is what is happening to her. She's baffled, she's confused, she's hurting. She's now abandoned, isolated, alone. Because now I lost my husband, the man I actually love. You can just feel the compounding pain. That's why I said Bathsheba was a woman who suffered greatly. She was not this adulterous woman. She was suffering at the hands of someone else. But then
I'm glad you clarified that, because in my teachings of this storyline, it did, the pastors from the past have romanticized it and made it seem like it was an adulterous affair instead of she was taken against her will.
Right.
Wow.
Why do you think we hear it that way? Because it's been preached that way forever. Why do you think they put it that way?
Yeah.
Testosterone.
It's being preached by men and
Mhm.
from a white male.
I didn't want to go there. Thank
This is
you.
what would be communicated. Now, if you had a woman rabbi getting up and teaching this, I dare say we would get a completely different story. So this is just, this is a societal.
But not necessarily.
I don't even think it would take a woman rabbi. I think it just takes a person with the reading and comprehension to see that she was taken. It's a choice for them to skew the story, and a lot of times they kind of hope that you don't go read it for yourself. Like, I knew the story of Bathsheba, and I've always heard the negative, but it reads very clear here that he took her. So it's a choice to then believe something different. It's a choice to then not go and check it out for yourself and see this woman was taken. You know what I mean? Like, I had guilt about Thomas because I judged Thomas. I had guilt about that. I didn't judge her. You know what I mean? I never really dug into the story, but I didn't. So it says in clear words here that she was taken. So to believe anything different is either you're not digging into the word or you're gaslighting people.
I think it also shows like the today's mindset of like it's all the woman's responsibility to be clothed or to have modesty. Like, the reason why I choose to be modest, not in my own household, but to be modest is because of my relationship with God, my love for God, not because I'm trying to not only, like, the only reason is not to have men fall. Like, I think it portrays her in a way of like, oh, she was on top of there and she was showing herself. Like, why would she be doing that? Like, it's not only on women to be, like, she was where she was supposed to be, but without the historical context.
Right.
Then it is seen in the light of how I think right now, like, it's completely on women to make sure we're not sexualizing ourselves so that men don't fall or aren't tempted. But I don't know if that makes sense as to
No,
what
again, we're responsible for their sin. Don't show your tiggle bitties, because then they're gonna lust.
It's not even not even that. It's preached that, the women are, protect your brothers. I heard that my whole
me too.
coming up in the kingdom, what I wore to church. I had to consider my brothers. My suit was bad, but I couldn't wear it because I didn't want to make a brother struggle. You know what I mean?
Can I show you what I keep in my Bible? Can you read it?
Modesty is not a bad word. It's a
Mhm.
characteristic of a woman whose heart has been changed from self-will to godliness. It reveals the attitude of a woman that lives to honor God.
True that.
Yes.
Um,
But go ahead. Who was that?
that was me. Can I add one thing?
Hey, Bridget.
Yeah, so I guess kind of going off what Gianna was saying in a way, like in the beginning too, when we started reading, like it talks about there was a war going on, and even in that time too, like contextually, I only know this because of a sermon that I had listened to not super long ago about this story particularly, but it was about sin, and like David wasn't even where he was supposed to be in the first place.
No,
Like
Right.
he should have been with his men. So like
Right.
he's just like dilly-dallying, whatever, and like
Right.
again, sin will always take you further than you want to go. So and what it can't destroy, it'll distract. So he sees this woman, and then this whole thing starts.
Yeah.
So it's
Michael
he
Todd.
wasn't even supposed to be there.
Yeah. That's true. Yeah, I think this story is so misconstrued because people have a difficult time, as people are preaching this, reconciling the fact that David is known as a man after God's own heart. I think that's the point, is if we can see David in his dark man worldliness, then to see him change and become a man after God's own heart is where the power lie. But I think we try to dismiss the sin of David because we want to just see him as the man after God's own heart. But he was not that until God made the change within him. So that's why today I want us to see just how dark he was, just how deeply he sinned against this woman. Not because I'm against David, I love David, but that just the whole point of this story is that man, not just man as in testosterone, men, us, people, when we are left to our own devices, we can go very, very, very dark. We need to have a heart, God.
Right.
Because without that, we take things that don't belong to us. We lust after things. We kill people. It's like you look at all the things that David is doing, it's all the things that we do. That's why God chose him to have this story. But if we, as church people, refuse it, take away the power of it. So I want us to see the power in it because I want us to see what his action is doing to this woman. Then we'll see what God does with that afterwards. Anyway, I want to keep going because we could definitely, this is one of those stories we can get stuck on David and beat up on him, and he deserves it in this moment, but it changes. So we look at it. The woman has been valued. She's been taken. All this stuff has happened to her. Then she's finding, oh my gosh, now I'm pregnant. Oh my gosh, now my husband's dead. She doesn't know that this is at the hands of David. All she knows, my husband's at war and he has died. So she goes through her mourning. They say it's like a 7-day process of she's mourning after her husband. Verse 27 says, after the time of mourning was over, David had her brought to his house, and she became his wife and bore him a son. So how do you think she feels now? What do you think she's feeling?
Like her life is over. Like
Exhausted.
Absolutely no control.
Now she's even though she was taken by him before, he's now brought her into his home. So she's now marrying a king. Change anything? She's like,
I just have to see your face every day. Thank you. Like that's how I feel. I'd be so mad. But then again,
It's a
he's
sense
king.
of obligation.
Like, you still
That's
serve
just
him.
bad.
So.
That's
were
a
you
good
saying
point.
something? So many today, so you guys
Yeah.
might have to raise your hand because everybody's talking on it. I can't catch everybody.
She made a really good point. Can you repeat that?
I said now she's at least she's marrying a king. She's moving into the castle. Do you think it changes anything?
I just feel she feels obligated and disgusted, and maybe where this is the only choice she has. She's married to a king, yeah, whatever. Other people would be excited, but she's like, oh well.
Okay.
I'm a queen, whatever.
Right? So I'm a queen, whatever. Nikki, I saw your hand.
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Mhm.
I was just thinking, like, it's hard to even say what she might be feeling. I feel like because it was such a different time, a different culture, you know, where there's part of her is probably glad that she's taken care of in a sense, right?
Mhm.
You know, I don't know how she would feel. I mean, as a woman, I know I'd be hot. I couldn't even stand being there, but I know it was a different time. So there's probably, I don't know, I would say numb, that she probably feels numb. She's just
Nice.
going with it.
Good word. Good word.
Mhm.
Okay. Cindy, were you going to share something different?
I was thinking along the same lines. She's a widow, which puts her at a great disadvantage. There's nobody to take care of her. We
Right.
don't know if she has any relatives or family. Maybe they're all at war too, and so they left the women and the children at home, except for David. And you know, his idleness led him into sin. It's kind of like idle times, idle hands are the devil's handiwork. It kind of sounds like that.
Mhm. Okay.
Pregnant. She's going to be a single mother and a widow. Not good. Where she needs to be taken care of. So I wouldn't bet that, you know, she probably feels resigned
Mhm.
and that I really don't have a choice here.
Right.
You know, and
But-
kind of numb, shut down.
Yeah.
You know, and
Yes.
she's probably going to play her cards the best she can. She's thinking about her baby and
Yeah.
probably still mourning. I know you may have 7 days, but that's over with.
Right.
So, you know, David trying to do something to remedy the situation, but I don't think so.
Okay. Victoria, then I got to keep moving.
Like Nicole said, we can't assume we know what she was feeling, because she also could have been a very strong woman of God who had a very strong faith and trust in God. Even though she was mourning, even though she was scared and all these things were going through her, she still could have had the hope that women have when they have a relationship with God.
Okay. Very possible. And no, we do not know. I do think, though, what we tend to do when life deals us cards that are difficult, we try to make the best of our situation. You know, so here it is. There's some positives to it. You know, no longer are people talking down about her. Oh, she's at least a queen. At least she's in the, you know, that she's amongst many others. He had lots of wives. So some parts of her life changed. So I'm sure there was a little bit of hopefulness there. But at the same time, there's an emptiness there, because what happened has happened, you know. Now, she's now pregnant. She didn't have a child before. So that gives her something, and we're all nurturers, gives her something to let me put all my focus here. I'm going to block out all this other pain. I'm going to now focus here. Then what happens? 2 Samuel 12. Again, I want to get a very clear picture of this beautiful woman, Bathsheba.
Where are you looking? What verse?
2 Samuel chapter 12, verse 15.
Okay.
Verse 15. And we'll talk about that a little bit.
I'll read it. It says, then Nathan went back to his home, and the Lord struck the child that Uriah's widow bore to David, and he was very sick.
Okay. So again, she's not privy to all this conversation that God and Nathan and David's having. So David's got insight she doesn't have. All she knows is, I'm carrying my first child. No matter how it all came about, I'm carrying my first child. And back then, that was a great thing. Everybody wanted children. That was your, you know, so this is wonderful. And then the child became very ill. What do you think she would be feeling, mamas?
Sad.
Was that, Tavy, did you say?
She'd probably be a little devastated.
He's devastated.
Mm-hmm.
He's devastated. If anybody's ever had a kid and your kid became sick, you're like, oh, God, please don't, not my, anything. Take anything, do anything, don't take my kid. There's a desperate plea. God, please let my child be okay. I've lost so much. Don't take my kid. There's a lot going on with this woman. Then look at verse 18. Somebody read that one.
On the seventh day the child died. David's servants were afraid to tell him that the child was dead, for they thought, while the child was still living, we spoke to David, but he would not listen to us. How can we tell him the child is dead? He may do something desperate.
So now the baby dies. Again, we get all this story about David. We know everything he's feeling. We know everything that he's talking to God about. We know precisely what God, but she is not privy to any of that. All she knows is I was taken, got pregnant. Good thing is I'm going to have a baby. My baby is now sick. My baby is now dead.
And none of it was her fault.
And it's my fault.
None of it
I'm
was
sure she blamed herself.
I'm sure. Yeah.
You know, she's the fallen. Was that D?
I said she could feel like she's being punished for laying with the king too.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. All of those feelings, women, that's us.
Yeah.
We take all this on, even though this had nothing to do with her. Yet look at what it's doing to her. We are nurturers naturally. So now she's nurturing pain. She no longer has a live baby to take care of. So now she's just holding on and rocking all that pain. It's been sitting there, however long this period of time has been. I'm sure she's feeling forgotten by God. I was a righteous woman. I was trying to be a righteous woman. And God, look at what you allowed to have happen. So this story, if we look at it just from that, it can end very, very dark. Then God gives her a child, right? Verse 24. Might read verse 24.
Then David comforted his wife, Bathsheba, and he went to her and made love to her. She gave birth to a son, and they named him Solomon. The Lord loved him, and because the Lord loved him, he sent word through Nathan, the prophet, to name him Jedediah.
So now she gets pregnant. I love the fact that this time they say he made love to her. We heard the first time it was completely different, right? Now it's a whole different setup. So we're seeing a change is starting to happen. Even though all this horrible stuff has happened in her life and this woman has suffered greatly, there's a change that now is starting to take place. And she gives birth to Solomon. Who was Solomon?
Greatest king who ever lived.
Whoa.
Nice.
Wisest king who ever lived.
Wow.
Oh yeah.
He was going to cut the baby in half.
Why is it? God took this woman who's wrapped in pain and disillusion and abandonment and dishonor, and he could have chosen any woman. He chose this woman. It says, you're going to give birth to a king. You never know what God is going to do, he's going to use. We get stuck the first half of our life. If she had gotten stuck in that first part of tragedy, we would never have gotten to the last part, which is where we're going now. She goes on, and for the sake of time, I'm not going to even go through a lot of it. She gives birth to 4 sons. SG.
Sorry, I know you're trying to speed
It's
up.
okay.
It just says like what the name means. Jedediah means loved by the Lord. I don't know if you're going there, but so I just thought that in all of her mess, if she's thinking she's unloved or being slighted, like this, the names we obviously know in the Bible mean a lot when someone's named something special.
Yes, God is showing himself. He's going, I know what you feel, baby girl. I know what's happened to you, baby girl. I have not forgotten you. I got you. I'm going to take care of David. I got him. He's wrong. And she was just the collateral damage.
Yeah, exactly.
God was stepping in saying, even when we're just collateral damage to somebody else's darkness, I still got you. It's not like I've forgotten you and you're just a blip on the screen. He says, no. I'm watching your life while I'm watching his life. So he took this woman who was completely empty, and now he's made her full. He's made her full with a king. He's taking her somewhere.
I'm confused.
Yes. Yes, Tabby.
So it says they named him Solomon, but the Lord sent word through Nathan to name him Jedediah. Who's what?
She's like, did nobody else catch that?
Got 2 names or something?
They're always renaming. The Lord gave him the name Jedediah because that name means, was it
Loved by God.
Loved by
About
God.
the Lord, it says,
Loved
yeah,
by the
depending
Lord.
on whatever translation you have.
Yes. It's no different from Simon, son of John. I'm not going to call you Peter. It's like he's given him a loved name. This is going to be the name because I think he was trying to make a point to his mother. It wasn't about Solomon at this point. Solomon was a baby. This was a message to mom.
Oh.
Like Emmanuel and Jesus.
Like Emmanuel and Jesus.
Yeah.
Because at this point, Bathsheba needs to be convinced. You know, have you ever gotten so down and you're so hurt and you're so empty? You're like, forget it. I knew he needed to now convince her he was still in this story with her. So for him to come up and say, loved by the Lord, was very much on purpose because she no longer felt loved by the Lord, let alone her child. She felt whatever falls into my hands is going to be destroyed because I'm so wretched of a woman. So there's God stepping in, showing himself when she needed him most. I think that's why the name being what it is, it's just beautiful, loved by the Lord. Okay? Anyway, keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going. She goes on, she has 4 sons. You can look this up, guys. I'm not going to do it for the sake of time. It's in 1 Chronicles 3. It lists her sons in the last, and it lists Solomon as being obviously.
Nathan, Shobab, and Shamua.
Yes. Yes. But I want you to see where it's going. Go to 1 Kings chapter 1. How am I doing on time? I'm always worried. Oh, I'm good.
You know, the next story, if I'm not mistaken, is also a story of rape.
Yes, it is.
Interesting.
They were big on that back then. No, sorry.
Were?
There were.
Yeah.
Were?
I said it that way so we wouldn't get stuck.
Happening now.
1 Kings, 2 Kings?
1 Kings chapter 1, verse 28 through 30.
Okay.
Then King David said, "Call in Bathsheba." So she came into the king's presence and stood before him. The king then took an oath. "As surely as the Lord lives, who has delivered me out of every trouble, I will surely carry out today what I swore to you by the Lord, the God of Israel. Solomon your son shall be king after me, and he will sit on my throne in my place."
All right, so this is David. Now, David's gone through a lot of changes. Like I said, we saw the darkest of David. Then God did some stuff in between. That's when he became the man after God's own heart. So now he's trying to make right his wrongs. So what does he say to Bathsheba?
I'm keeping a promise.
He made a promise to her. What was the promise?
That her child would be king.
Her child would be king. He was not, Solomon was not the natural heir to the throne. It would have been one of David's other kids. But God being God, God changed some stuff around. He says, okay, Solomon, you're going to be heir to the throne.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a whole nother story because the other brothers got really upset. So that's something else in the future. But God put Solomon in place so that he would be the next king. Now look at chapter 2, verse 19.
Can't see.
When Bathsheba went to King Solomon to speak to him for adonage, whatever, the king stood up to meet her, bowed down to her, and sat down on his throne. He had a throne brought for the king's mother, and she sat down at his right hand.
So here we have Bathsheba. What's she doing?
She's sitting down on somebody's throne.
She is now sitting on a throne. So here's this woman that we looked at earlier, and she was depleted of life itself. Just let me die. It's over and done. God is now saying, give me your life. I got it. He's turning some stuff around. Now you've got this woman literally sitting on the throne. If you look at what she came from, where she is now.
Yeah.
She had gotten stuck in the darkest of dark. She would have never gotten there. So the lesson for us is we cannot allow ourselves to get stuck in the darkest of the dark because God's not done with us yet. He could be working on someone else's story. You're right now a sidekick in that story. He was working on David. She was the collateral in that story. She had her own story, was also going to come into focus. If she had quit before she came into focus, she would have quit in all that garbage. We've got to understand that God looks at all of our stories individually. They also intersect. And sometimes it simply isn't about us. Even though it's unfair, it's ugly, it's nasty. The beginning of this, it was not about Bathsheba. It was about David. But now we're starting to see, ooh, this is becoming all about Bathsheba. Let me show you where she ends, because this is where it's so cool. Go to Matthew chapter 1. This is God stuff. Now, Solomon wrote the book of Proverbs. So it's said, not 100% guaranteed, that she is the Proverbs 31 woman. He was writing this about his mother. So here we've got Bathsheba, one who has this reputation. She is actually known as the Proverbs 31 woman.
Wow.
We look at that and go, oh God, you good. You good. Look at how he changed her life. So much so, she became what other women look at.
Wow.
Go, wow,
Good
only
model.
I could be Proverbs 31 woman. Now look at Matthew 1, then we just gonna talk, because there's just so much to talk about. This is cool, let me get myself there. Jackie, you still with us? Still hanging? Okay, good. All right, now this one does have a lot of weird names in it, so we're not even gonna try. This is the lineage of Jesus, right? This is so-and-so begat so-and-so, and so-and-so begat so-and-so, and all that stuff. When you start reading through it, look at just in verse 6. Somebody read just verse 6.
Jesse, the father of King David. David was the father of Solomon, whose mother had been Uriah's wife.
What? Whose mother had been?
David was the father of Solomon, whose mother had been Uriah's wife.
Look at this, scripturally.
Not David's wife, Uriah's wife.
Ah, that's where I'm going. First of all, when you go through the lineage throughout Old Testament and New, it's all about the men. So-and-so, Jesse begot Obed, and Obed begot this. It's all about, because it's a patriotic, that's just the way it was. So he lists all these men. There's only 5 women.
5 women.
5 women.
From yesterday.
In the lineage of Jesus. And one of those 5 is Bathsheba. Now, I love God because this is what he does. He could have said Bathsheba. That is her name, right? Instead, he's making sure David does not forget.
He's a truth teller.
Truth teller. He says, okay. He did not have to say David was the father of Solomon. He could have left it right there. He says David was the father of Solomon, whose mother had been Uriah's wife. So he's like, David, just in case you forget, I want you to remember.
God
I'm
firing
using
shots.
you. You are now a man after God's own heart, but I want you to remember from where you came.
He's exonerating her.
Be humble.
Yes, he's
Sit down.
exonerating her,
He's exonerating her. Who was
Uriah's wife.
And every good Jewish boy and girl knew what that story was
Yes.
all about.
God redeemed her. So
Yeah.
here's this woman that we looked at in the beginning. People, I'm sure, said all sorts of stuff about her. Even today, we say all sorts of stuff about her
Mm-hmm.
because we want to make David look better.
Mm-hmm.
And God says, I'm going to redeem her. I want you to realize this. She used to be Uriah's wife. Before David did what he did, she was Uriah's wife.
He was a
Drop the mic.
wife.
Look at what God is doing, though. I mean, it just almost gives me chills. He has said, I got your back, girl. I know people have dogged you out. I know they said all sorts of stuff about you. I know how you have taken all that in and how you feel about yourself. But I want the world to know from this moment on, it was not your fault. So even though the people didn't admit it, even though, David tried to clean, I was saying, I will admit it. The rest of the world, when they read this, they will know you were Uriah's wife. David messed up. You didn't mess up.
Ooh.
Isn't that
You
deep?
like me
So
now?
good. I gotta go. I hate to go. God bless you guys.
Bye.
Bye.
Especially when
That's
people
our
read
God.
when they read the lineage and they go and they think David was the father of Solomon, whose mother had been Uriah's wife, then it's like, then it almost begs you to say, who the heck is Uriah?
Yes.
What?
Yes.
Because David is his father.
Right.
So why would she be the wife of anybody other than David?
Yes.
Because she wasn't.
Right,
Yes.
right,
You can't bury the bodies with God.
right. That's true.
And he's also giving honor to Uriah. It's like what you're seeing is that no one's forgotten.
Yeah.
We seem and we feel forgotten in stories like this. God is showing us no one is forgotten. I realize Uriah was doing the right thing.
Yeah, he was.
Uriah was being a man that God could say, I love this man, so I want him to be honored. So he says, Uriah's wife. And he wanted us to see Bathsheba wasn't doing anything wrong. She was doing the right thing. So I want the world. God will redeem us. He will stand in the gap for us if we allow ourselves to go the distance in the story. We usually, unfortunately, get stuck in the first half of our story. If you think about your own life personally, where have you gotten stuck? That's when you can look and go, okay, God, I got stuck here because bad things were happening to me.
Mhm.
God says, okay, yeah, it's true. I agree. No one's disagreeing. Bad stuff was happening to Bathsheba. She couldn't afford to get stuck there. Otherwise, she wouldn't. We have a choice. We either give birth to pain and devastation, or we give birth to a king. Now, a king looks different in our lives. Her life, it was literally a king. We've got to look at it and go, God, I don't want to continue to nurse the pain. This woman could have just been holding on to an empty womb, going, I used to have a child, and God took it away.
Yeah. There's a woman who did, in contrast, I think it was Dinah.
Mm-hmm.
She was raped,
Mm-hmm.
absolutely devastated, ruined life, never married. It sounds like she was completely traumatized beyond, reclamation.
Yeah.
I just thought of that.
Yeah. So God wants us to see in this whole thing, God redeems us past our hurts. We've got to allow ourselves to keep moving. It's only when we stop moving that our hurts take over. I said, if you keep moving, I'm going to redeem you past your hurt. This is a woman who learned to live with what she could not live down. When I said before, when we hear Bathsheba, we conjure up an image. We have an idea about who we think she is. She had to live with that. When people saw her walking down the street, they had a, Some of us, we live with that. All of us. People look at you and they go, oh, yeah, that Jackie. If you only knew. It's like we are stuck in what other people think about us.
Mhm.
So we have to be willing to go beyond that, because if we can get beyond that, that's where the redeeming is.
Mhm.
She has shut down based on what everybody had to say about her. She probably would not have made it through the rest of the story.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
I love the fact that God picked her to produce a king. Think about all the women of the Old Testament, all those giants that we love. He could have chose Sarah. He could have chose Abigail. I mean, there are so many people I go, oh, I love Abigail. Oh, I love. I said, no, I'm choosing Bathsheba. I'm choosing someone that everybody would think, her? You chose her to birth a king? Why do you think God chooses really those of us kind of at our lowest to do great things with?
So that
That's
we
just
can't take
how
the credit
he
for it.
gets the most glory. Yeah, Victoria. Like, if we were all doing great and just kept doing better, like, oh, cool. Like, they were already great and now they're even
Right.
better. Like,
They're the relatable ones.
yeah.
Yes. And how do you think Bathsheba felt being the lineage of Jesus?
Yeah, I was thinking about that. Like just even whose mother had been Uriah's wife. It's like Jesus isn't even part of like David's lineage. It's like Bathsheba's lineage. Not really, but like,
Right.
I don't know.
Yes.
Must have been like how Mary felt
Yeah, Mary is the
with Jesus. That's got to be overwhelming.
Yes.
You think she knew?
Knew what?
Well, not Jesus. She didn't know she was
Yeah.
part of that lineage of Jesus,
Right.
but she went from where she went to she's sitting on a throne.
Right. Well, yeah, then that, yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. I got stuck. I was on Mary. I was like, you think she knew? I didn't even think she
It's okay.
knew.
I think
We know
it's
she was there. We know she knew.
I'm sorry. I'm slow.
But she went from being, I don't deserve anything, because once we get stuck in what's happened to us, all that stuff we mentioned at the beginning, it's hard to shake that off,
Yeah.
because those are deep inner thoughts and inner feelings. So everything that she felt, I am deserving, I'm no longer righteous, I'm no longer clean, nobody cares, but all those things that she was feeling, that traveled with her through life. I'm sure she was constantly battling away all of those negative thoughts. So now I'm sitting on a throne. Does that take away what she feels inside?
Mm.
Not necessarily.
So she has to work through it with God.
It's a lifetime battle. And I think, again, when God says, Solomon, I'm going to call him Jedediah, because God was saying, I'm with you. You need to hear me. I'm on your side. It was like God was changing her mindset, help her to see moving in a certain direction. I know all this stuff that happened to you. I know all that stuff. It's behind you now. Now we're moving forward. My hands are now on your story. So if we look at all of us, just to sum it all up, whatever your story has been, Bridget's got a story. Cindy's got a story. Tavy's got a story. We all got a story. Jackie, don't get stuck in whatever that story was, because God is saying, now, my hand on you. I'm getting ready to lead you somewhere. I need you to be willing, ready, and able to give birth to your king, whatever that is. But you can't give birth to a king if you're still holding on to a dead baby.
Mm.
So we've got to look at life, whatever unfair things have happened to us, that's our dead baby. Are we still holding on to that? Because you cannot have new life and old life coexisting. So one's got to go. God had to take the baby, the first baby, in order to make room for the new baby. So for us to look at it and go, what are we fighting God on? God, I'm fighting to hold on to this. This is all I've got. Because she could have very well been, everything else I've lost, so I'm just going to hold on to my baby. When God said, no, this baby is dead, she could have just held on to that. We do that. We hold on. And God's like, I need you to let it go, Tabby. You got to let it go. Because I cannot move you forward to your destiny if you're still holding on to your past. What are we holding on to?
Truth paste. Truth
I heard
paste.
someone say recently, I think it was a completely different topic, but just saying that, like, I'm not going to claim the victim mentality, but I'm going to claim the victory instead. I really like that.
My name means victory, literally.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It reminds me of Reggie was telling me some of his therapy stuff he was going through today. And one of the doctors had pointed out the patients who grow the most from getting therapy and the ones who put the most into recovery work are the ones who eventually see their worth. But the ones who don't see that they were worthy of being treated fairly or being treated properly or being loved, and they didn't see that they were worth something, that was still the mindset.
Right.
That their recovery. So like how we value ourselves. And I had shared that with someone else, like, you know, obviously it's love God first and love your neighbors as yourself. Like when I became a Christian, I thought it was like the whole self-care thing goes away. Like, oh, that's selfish. But I'm like, God wants us to love others how we love ourselves. So he does value how we love ourselves. That's still an important thing. Like we need to cherish ourselves so that we can show that same love to other people. I just think that's really cool to me. Like God doesn't want us to see ourselves in any other way but like the utmost awesomeness.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting. It makes me think of my next podcast interview. And I'd asked her something like, you know, what's the thing that God has been teaching you the most, that he's been saying all your life, you've got to get this. And she said, trust myself. It was surprising. I didn't expect that answer. You know, but she said, I trust God. I don't trust myself. I don't trust that I'm smart enough. I don't trust that I'm mom enough. I don't trust. And it was real. I was like, you know what? That is awesome. You know, we have to reach that point. Really, is what G is saying. It's those who are willing to go, I am better, or I am worth this, or I am capable of. Those are the ones who are able to rise up out of it. As long as you believe that you're not, then you're not. You've already put the lid on the, you know, on the jar. So believing and trusting in ourselves enough to rise up out of it and expect more. You tell with Bathsheba, every time something positive happens, it's almost like you go from being bent over, and you almost feel her rising up. She's, you know, she's going, okay, this woman had been beaten down and beaten down and beaten down, and you see her slowly lifting her shoulders again, rising up. Martin Luther King Jr. has a quote. It says something to the effect of, it's time for men and women to stand up, because a man can't ride your back unless it is bent. And that's what happens when life happens to us, especially at the hands of other people. We get beaten down and broken down. Then that allows us to be walking around in life in a bent down position. It makes it easy for people to jump on our backs. They're like, oh, she's already, let me jump on her. And God is saying, rise up. You see Bathsheba being risen up from the ashes of where she'd come from, all the way to the lineage of Jesus. You imagine if they didn't have this, if there was a graduation ceremony and they're announcing all of the lineage of Jesus, and they're naming off all of these incredible people. We've got Abraham and we've got Jesse, and, you know, they're all proud and yes, I did this, and because those are the people we admire. You know, we look at David and we go, yes, David. When you say Uriah's wife, there's a humbleness in going across that stage, because she knows, ooh, I fit in this group with the grace of God. I'm here. That's what he wants from us. He says, you know what, guys? We are all standing by the grace of God. We're all Shebas in some way, shape, or form. Life has happened to us and beat us down. God is now saying, rise up. I want you to walk with your head up high, but I want you to remember, you're only here because of me. The grace of God. Okay? That's all I got. No, kind of deep, kind of heavy. But then remember, she ended up being the Proverbs 31 woman.
Cool.
And be that, right? Drop the mic.